I tried Duolingo, and whilst it was great to feel like I was doing something, I actually never understood anyone if they were talking to me in my target language. And let's be honest, some of the sentences you'll never use in real life. I'm not trying to single out Duolingo. I've tried loads of apps, and I would try one for a bit, get a bit bored, try another one. I'd get rewarded with little icons and badges, but it never felt like I was making meaningful progress in getting towards fluency. I'd much rather try and learn a language from native speakers rather than endlessly trying to do quizzes on some kind of app. And that's why my preferred way to learn a language is through italki. Now, there are plenty of other similar resources around. This is just what I use. And I found that the quality of not just the teachers, but even the community tutors is absolutely amazing. And whilst you can do a language exchange for free online, you're perfectly entitled to do that. If you're short on time like me, sometimes just paying a professional or semi-professional, if it's a community tutor, it makes such a difference to just spend the entire time focusing on you and your language learning. On italki, you can find a tutor from literally anywhere in the world, and you can find someone from the particular accent that you're after if that's important to you. Not just that, but you can check their diaries beforehand, which is useful to see if they've got a regular slot for you. But most importantly, you can check out their videos. And that is the most important thing in finding a tutor, I find. Get a general vibe for the person that you're going to hopefully spend a lot of hours learning from. See if that's the kind of person that you want to invest your time in. So I spend a lot of time checking out videos before I book a class with a tutor. I'll find someone in my price range and find someone who has a video that makes them look engaging and entertaining, so that I will enjoy my classes with them. You'll notice some people are listed as professional teachers and some are listed as community tutors. From my experience, there isn't a huge amount of difference between them. The main thing is the person, and some people I've found who are professional teachers maybe aren't as engaging as someone who I am paying to essentially have a conversation with me. And if they are fun and they've got interesting things to talk about, for me, that's so much more valuable than someone who has a formal qualification. And then I'll often message a teacher before the first class if there's any specific requests I've got, or even to talk about something they've mentioned on their profile. I then book a trial lesson with the teacher, and it's kind of like this weird, I was going to say speed dating, but this weird first date thing with this teacher where you're trying to see if there's some chemistry between you so you can get to know this other person and hopefully have fascinating conversations, or at least engaging. It should be that it ends up like you're chatting with a friend week after week, as opposed to feeling like it's this kind of awkward, like being back in school kind of lesson. If that's what you want to pay for, you go for it. That's absolutely fine. But I would rather have a more informal, enjoyable chat with a tutor where I just naturally pick up the language I'm after, as opposed to sitting down and being taught the language, because I'll be honest, I'm an adult, I can do that myself. I'll buy the books. My language lessons, it's just I'm paying someone to be kind enough to have a chat with me in my target language. If I'm happy with how that trial lesson went, then I'll book a package of lessons. Now, I'll do it for two reasons. One, if you book lessons in a package, I say package like 5 to 10 lessons or whatever, it's often cheaper. You get a slight discount, which is always good. Two, and more importantly, it keeps me accountable. So instead of booking other things into my life, I will book those lessons, and they are already there, taking up time in my calendar to stop me being distracted doing other things. And it means that week after week, I am coming back to do something to do with my language learning. And once you get going, you find it so enjoyable to just find out about another culture. My first teacher was training to become a firefighter in Spain, and it was so interesting hearing about his experience of that training process, what the culture is like of firefighting teams in Spain, and the same for my Chinese teacher. She was living in China at the start of the pandemic, and we'd be having these conversations, and in January 2020, she'd be saying, "Oh yeah, and that virus is," and I'd kind of have no idea what she was. "Oh yeah, I've heard something on the news about this virus," and slowly, I'm like, "Oh yeah, this coronavirus, something, yeah." Until she's talking about, there were roadblocks, we're being stopped. I'm like, "Oh my god, that sounds like a real." And I got a view into what was it like living in China at the start of the pandemic, which again, I never would have got that. And so the joy of learning a foreign language is getting new perspectives on the world, talking to someone, finding out their culture, history and things like that. The world gets bigger when you learn a foreign language. Trust me on this one. If you only speak English, all your news outlets, the types of media you consume, it's all in this one little English bubble. And then as you learn another language, suddenly you're like, oh, like Spanish, for example. The whole Spanish speaking world is huge. Types of food I've never heard of. Loads of different types of experiences that I just wouldn't have known about had I just thought the world existed in just this bubble I could see, let alone when you start to get into the Chinese speaking world. It's fascinating. And the world gets so much bigger. Anyway, I'm getting off track. italki. The benefit also of using italki as opposed to paying someone locally to go to an actual class, a physical class. Imagine that, being in a classroom. There's no setup time. Literally open my laptop, boom, I'm ready to go. I am in class. Fantastic. I've had it where I've had to travel a fair way to get to classes before. There's paying for the commute, potentially parking, sitting there waiting for the class to start. But I'm in my house, I start the class, I'm immediately in that classroom for 1 hour. Class finishes, no commuting time, I can get on with my day. I'm sure at some stage in the week you've got 1 spare hour you could at least commit to it. Depending on where in the world you are, you'll probably find tutors on italki that are cheaper than paying a face-to-face tutor, which is always a bonus. And you can also search for a teacher by price if that's an issue for you. What I would say is that if you're going to invest in yourself, then prioritizing your language learning will definitely be worth it in the long term. Speaking to native speakers will give you new perspectives on the world, which you otherwise might not have had. And more importantly, it's more fun than scrolling through an app and getting little badges. I get meaningful interaction with native speakers. One way I do that is through something that's called crosstalk, which is a very specific language learning method. So check out this video here where I explain the method and the thought process behind crosstalk. It is something you can use from today to really boost your language learning. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.